Hello and welcome back to another episode of Intuitive Psychology, the podcast. I am one of your hosts. My name is Sarah Gregg and I'm joined by the fabulous, always insightful and on hand with some brilliant practical exercises, my co-host, co-founder and very good friend, Jill Ritchie.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I always love the intros from you. I need to get better at mine. Yeah, we are here to bring you another amazing episode, and this one is no exception because it is all about how you can start to feel safe stepping into your fullest potential, the fullest, most expressed and unapologetic version of you. And I know that, well, we know because so many people want to do it, but it's not always easy for people to fully feel safe to step into their most authentic self and in their light, right? Because we can get addicted to the story, Sarah. The reason I can't do this is because of that, and this thing happened to me. But actually stepping into the light, like there's this beautiful quote, and I'm not going to say it because I can't remember it all off by hand, but by Marianne Williamson. And it is about how our fear is not our dark, it's actually our potential. I'm paraphrasing, right? But it's our potential to fully step into our light and be seen. That is probably the biggest thing that terrifies a lot of people, to step into. Wow, how powerful are you when you get out of your own way and you fully step into that light?
Yeah, so maybe you're tuning in and you're feeling that fear that both of us have experienced, and you're not alone in that fear. Like, I think the quote goes on to say, who are you to be brilliant? Who are you to be great? And it kind of ends with, who are you not to be? But even though we want the thing, we know and we feel this intuitive calling that we're meant for more. There's more to our potential than we're realizing. There's more to our full selves than we're allowing to be seen. But there's another part of us that feels deeply unsafe to do that thing. And so we're in this continual wrestle with ourselves, this wrestle in our mind. We can beat ourselves up. We often don't speak very compassionately to ourselves when we're in this state. And we kind of have this narrative, I know mine is like, why can't you do that? There can be envy because we look at other people who are doing the thing that we want to do and we judge them and we think, oh, so easy for them because insert false narrative here. And it's not a nice state to be in. But today we're going to really get to the core of why we feel like that, to normalize it, so that that you're not alone and this is part of the human experience, but also to give you some really practical insights, tips to help you cultivate that inner sense of safety so you can be your full self.
Ultimately, it comes down to our level of expression comes down to the level of safety that we have created within ourselves. When I say expression, sometimes we can do it and it comes from a heart place. I'm just going to do this thing and, feel the fear and do it anyway. And there is truth in that, right? I get it. Feel the fear because there's going to be fear there, especially when it's new, especially when we have no guarantees. We don't know how it's going to be received. We don't know how we're going to feel when we do it. And if you've never done it before, you don't know how to do it that way. So it feels unsafe. And so the first thing is to really recognize where you're at right now and meet to yourself where you're at. I think that's really important. Let go of the judgment. We're so self-critical. I've been there before. Why am I like that? And I get really heady. And why is that? Why do I do that? It doesn't really matter, like the story. What really matters is your ability to change it, like to change the narrative and having the desire for it to be different. But recognizing, where am I right now? How safe do I feel stepping fully into my light? Because fear of failure is one thing, but fear of success is, I would say, arguably more challenging for a lot of people. Sarah, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think we, like you said at the beginning, we can approach sometimes our actions from that hurt place. Like, many of us will feel comfortable being the underdog in society, right? I'll show them, like, I'll act from this place. And then we get an element of success. We prove that we can do it, but then we withdraw back. And that's really where the fear of success comes in, because the fear of success is what stops us being consistent in moving towards the thing that we want. The initial hurt place will ignite the fire, right? And will spark a sense of action, but it's an unsustainable force, because ultimately that part doesn't want you to be successful long term, because its role is to be the underdog, is to be the angry, hurt self, is to be that person that struggles. It wants to keep you in that space. So it will give you an element of success, but then that part's responsibility is to draw you back so you stop. And I think so many of us are really frightened of our success, but why? Like, why do you think we're frightened?
I think we're frightened because we're so attached to what other people think of us. And when you mentioned underdog, like, I mean, obviously you're Irish, I'm Scottish, right? There's definitely a Celt thing there, where we love to cheer on the underdog. But you notice when the underdog starts to do too well, everyone's like, it's like a pack mentality. It's like, who do they think they are? Let's bring them down. You're getting too big for your boots. You love yourself. And that, like, the people that built you up when you were in your depths and you get too high, like, oh yeah, I'm achieving. It's like, oh, well, we get to decide how far you go and we will bring you back down. We built you up and we will bring you back down. And the thing is, like, hundreds of years ago, that went down. That happened for a lot of people. So, and I think, and
it still happens today.
It does still happen, right? It still happens. So even if it's not happened to you, you've seen it happen to someone else. So evidence tells you that's a thing. And you don't want to be the one that everyone turns on. Like, it's funny, right? Because you've probably experienced it. I know personally I've experienced it. People, like, when you're feeling vulnerable, people like it. But then when you're, like, happy, people are like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, now you've changed. You've changed and I don't like this version of you. But what you're doing is you're stepping more into your truth, your authenticity, which, by the way, is light, which everyone has underneath the layers and layers of all of the judgments, all of the resentment and the anger and all of the emotions underneath all of it. Now, we teach this in intuitive psychology, right? Underneath it all is light. It is. It's ultimately everythingness, right? It's pure, unadulterated. It's just gorgeous light. But we have packed on these layers. And what we do is then we go, right, I can do so much, but I don't want to be pushed out the pack, because, again, going back to hundreds, thousands of years ago, you needed to be in the pack to survive. And I think inherently we have, probably on genetic levels, and what we've learned from our ancestors, our great ancestors, is that we need community to survive. And so that's in us. Well, I can't do it. And so we take on this false narrative that I need to be part of this community or I'm going to die. Now, the reality is you're not going to die. And the other reality is you've built this false reality and false narrative around a community that you think you need to survive, but it's not. They're getting a false version of you. So actually you are self-abandoning the truth of who you are and all the majorly amazing abilities that you have to fully shine your light to stay part of a community that you can't even be yourself in. Like, that's wild. When you think about it like that, it's wild. And that's why so many people think something's missing. Yeah. The thing that's missing is you're not being your fullest expressed self to fit in. And that's why you feel that everything's a lie and everything's just fake, right? And I think that when you start to, and I know for sure, right, because I've experienced it, when you start to lean more in to your light, yes, fact, right? In this human world where it's consumption galore, you will piss people off. People will be triggered to the absolute maximum by you shining your light. But that's not your job. And I think what we've learned to realise through our own evolution in this space, Sarah, is that it is not your job to change who you are to make others feel better. Your job is to be your most expressed, authentic self. That is you. That is your true nature. That is who you came here to be. That is your soul's mission. That's your only job, is to live out that mission and find ways to get closer to that. And the right community, the right people that are on that path, that see you in your light and can hold that because they've done the work too, they will be part of your tribe. And you're never alone, right? It's that fear of the unknown, but you can't keep living your life dumbing down almost who you are and what your abilities are and what your skills are to fit someone else's narrative, because it makes you feel so disconnected, so inauthentic and lost ultimately.
Yeah. Oh, that really hit on like every level, because I think, and I know that we've been through our own personal growth journey continually, you know, for a long time, into different levels and layers of truth, you know, because consciousness can't reveal everything to you in one go. That's a lot to handle. Your intuition also won't do that. So, you know, at the Intuitive Psychology Association, we're the home of active and applied intuition. And we speak about this a lot. It's an evidence-based way to really activate that intuition. And intuition will show you the truth of what you need to know to move you to that next level and layer of yourself, so that you can experience a greater reality, experience a more truer version of yourself. But it can't show you everything all at once. And even when we have the truth, when we know we're not living in our authenticity, when we know that there's more to our potential, again, that's an intuitive nudge. It might not logically make sense, but we know that there's something missing, something isn't quite right. It's still hard and difficult, not only from our own internalized beliefs, emotions, responses, programs to the world, but from societies as well, from that bigger picture. And it's really hard to move forward. So let's talk a bit more about how we do it. So maybe you're at a place in your life now where you've done the work, an element of the work, and you're like, okay, I can see my imposter syndrome. I can see and understand where that comes from. You know, I can see my fear. I can see and understand where that comes from. But now I need to take that action. And I don't feel safe to do that fully. We've touched on this a little bit, but why do you think that we don't feel safe? Like, we have the awareness and we've worked with it, but why does it still feel like that little resistant?
Yeah. And I think it's as simple as you've never done it before, right? Like, we could talk about this in depth, but you've never done it before. So of course you don't feel safe. You don't know another way. Your whole life has been built around a system, a way of being, a narrative, a lot of it false, but it has kept you safe. And actually you've kind of cracked how to work with that. Oh, I know this is familiar. Even if it's shit familiar, the mind loves familiar. So it will go to, oh, but remember when you tried to do that, and remember that person that hurt you before, that's going to happen again. And remember that person that judged you then when everyone was gossiping about it, remember that. And remember when you felt rejected and then you just felt like really like unsafe in your body, that's going to happen again. That's going to happen again. The mind. And do you know what? The mind is like the lookout on the ship, right? It's like you're steering the ship in the dark, and the mind's like, oh, it's the lookout for the danger. But it's looking for it. It's in that space of like, what? Like, let's look at what's happened before. It can't predict the future, so it doesn't know. It only bases it on what's happened in the past. So of course, it's going to take you back to things that happened in the past. But again, going back to, how do you overcome that, right? Because it's like, yeah, okay, that makes sense, Jill, but how do I overcome that? Well, number one, we've established that you've never done it before, so it's going to feel unsafe. So how do you create safety in your body? And there are so many exercises that you can do, and we don't want to overcomplicate this. We like to keep it simple in ways that you can do this for yourself. And I'm going to be honest, like sometimes we do need support with this, and this is why we train. This is why we train intuitive psychology coaches, to help people with it. You can't always see your blind spots. It's having the awareness, but it's like, yeah, but I need to go a level deeper. I need to go a little bit deeper, and I need to create that change. But what you can do is have exercises where you create safety in your body. That is not doing what you've always done. That is not drinking it away, smoking it away, like running it away, keeping busy and doing what you've always done. That is stepping into the unknown, but working with your own beautiful nervous system so that you can create safety in your body that allows you to take that next step. You don't need to jump off the mountain. You just need to take that first step. And I think that's the thing. People look at the destination, right? I'm here and I want to be over there, but there's this forest of trees, and how do I navigate through it? You take one step and you take one tree out at a time, and you make the pathway. Focus on the one thing that you can do every single day, and it is creating a habit of working with your nervous system, breath work. We have some exercises in intuitive psychology where you can anchor in safety into your body. And it is as simple as starting with your breath and doing breathing exercises to connect with your body, because maybe you've never done that before.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned about the familiar and the fact that we're moving into the unknown and we've never done it before. And this is really about breaking the habit of being yourself.
Yes.
Because even though the familiar is uncomfortable, often unbearable, you know it, and you know what to do and how to survive in that environment, and it's safe because you know how to navigate it. Like I'll often say, like, give me a problem, and ironically I feel pretty safe in that space because I grew up in quite a chaotic household. I know how to bring calmness. I know how to solve that. It makes me feel needed, and it gives me a sense of purpose in an odd way. Like there's a payoff and a trade-off there. Give me peace, give me ease, give me flow. I don't feel super safe in that because I don't know it. I didn't grow up in a home or a household where that was a familiar place. So that feels unknown, and the brain and the mind and the body doesn't like the unknown. And this requires a level of safety, because we often think the thought comes first, but normally it's the emotion that comes first. You know, the emotion sparks something of like, this is unfamiliar, this isn't safe. You know, the internal messages come up in your mind. Like, you know, I'm sure many people will resonate with this because I think it's a cultural thing as well. But when things were going well, and if I went home and I was like, oh yeah, no, things are actually been pretty good for a couple of weeks, my lovely, very Northern Irish mother would be like, oh, don't get too used to it. No, you're tempting fate, you know, something bad's going to happen. And so, of course, whenever these periods of, you know, calm kind of come, it's like terrifying because you're looking behind you for the problem. So how then do we create safety as we move into the unknown? And I think the first point is, one, accepting that you've never done it before. Like we've talked about this, you know, you're like a little like adult baby, like moving through the world. You know, you don't have a playbook for this. You don't have the evidence that it's okay. You don't have the mechanisms, the know-how. Like you really are treading into unfamiliar territory, and that can feel unsafe. So one, I think it's the acceptance. And two, it's taking that role of the observer. You know, stepping back, not being attached to the emotion or the narratives that are coming to the surface, but just pinging them as they come into your awareness and going, oh, I can see this. I can see that this is my old programming that, although I'm aware of it and I've worked and I've done some healing, inevitably is still active. Yeah. Like it's still there. And it's bringing that acceptance. So I know for me, one exercise that is really, really powerful, it's rather than wish away those parts or go like, I let you go and I release you. If they're old, really, really ingrained parts, closing down your eyes, taking some beautiful kind of breaths, regulating the nervous system, and just going, like, I'm here. I accept you. I will be here for as long as you need me, and I'm listening to you. What do you need to feel safe? And asking it from that place and letting your intuition rise up. And often when our intuition speaks, it's in one word, it's in a symbol, it's in a metaphor, it's in a feeling, but its information is normally very succinct. That's how you can differentiate it from the rational mind. If it goes into a long story, you're in your mind, spend a little bit longer with the breath. But if it comes up and it says, I need to be heard, I need you to trust, I need you to believe, maybe it's a symbol of some description. Maybe it's like a pair of scissors, like the symbol of almost like cutting something free or releasing. Listen to that part and work with it. I think often why we don't feel safe to move forward is we place this heavy expectation because the wellness industry, the coaching industry, society as a whole perpetuates this narrative that once we do the work, we will be completely healed. And then on the other side of it, we will feel total safety to move forward and do whatever we want. In reality, what happens is we do the work, we do the healing, we release that part of ourselves, and then we have this transition period. It feels like the void. It feels like you're moving between two worlds. And it can feel uncertain and unknown and a little bit fragmented because you're leaving an old identity behind. And this transition part is a journey that only you can make, and it's a necessary one because as you journey and as you build up that safety, on the other side of that is a deeper level of safety, trust, knowing, confidence, self-belief, disidentification with, who other people need you to be, and more of a relationship with who you are. And most importantly, the next level up from that is actually it becomes less about you and what you need and more about what you can give and be in service to other people. Like that's the next level. But that journey in between the two worlds is necessary, and it does feel unknown. I know we've both been through experiences like that.
Yeah, the acceptance piece is massive. And so much of what you've said there is you have to meet yourself where you're at. And if you don't feel safe, how do you give that to yourself? It's not by keeping busy, it's by listening and also allowing yourself to feel. Like you talked about the wellness space, and this is where a lot of toxic positivity can come in. And we see this with mindfulness, always just, peace, love and light. Never think a bad thought, don't get angry. Like that is not real. Like healthy anger is important. And actually, if when you were younger, maybe you didn't get to express that anger, then you can go in and reparent that part of yourself and allow yourself to finish what never got to be finished. Like if you were maybe it was never safe to communicate something, maybe it was never safe to express as a child, how can you go in and allow yourself and hold space, because you are capable to hold space for yourself to fully express, like unfiltered, how you feel without, taking on the narrative, but understanding that these are emotions. It's emotion, energy, and motion. There's no bad emotion. It's the label that we give it. And actually, this thing where we're like, don't be angry, don't be this, don't be that, then we label it as good or bad. And actually it's not. There is a level of healthy anger that needs to be expressed, but if you have never felt safe to do that, I trust me when I say that is stuck in your body. That is what is stopping you moving forward. That is why you don't feel safe, because you never felt safe to do it. When I remember being at a seminar years ago, and my pattern, and I've shared this on my podcast before and with people, that my pattern in relationships where I would let people in, and then after a while I would feel a little bit unsafe. So I would always like, where's the exit? This doesn't feel safe. And I actually blamed the other people. But here's the funny thing. The other partners, I'm talking like boyfriends, right? They would play out in a certain way. So of course, everything I predicted they would do, they did. So that wasn't a lie. They actually did do it. So for that, of course I gathered that evidence, and it fed my narrative that men aren't safe. But I didn't realize I thought men weren't safe until I went to this seminar, and I kept repeating this part, and I'm like, why do I keep repeating this? And when they took me in, I was almost like, kind of what we do in an IPA when we get people really into sort of the deeper work. And I worked with the unconscious, and the person that was facilitating said to me, love is, and the first word that came out, I didn't even think about it, was painful. So my narrative was love was painful. So of course, I'm not going to let that in. So I was pushing it away and creating scenarios that were absolutely playing out and feeding my narrative. But deep within, I wanted to receive love. I wanted to be my most expressed self. I've had to learn to create that for myself. If I can't love myself, if I cannot accept all parts of me, the parts that felt unsafe to express anger, all of it, then how am I ever going to expect anyone else to accept me if I can't accept myself? And that was a huge lesson for me. But I think that so many people have that, not the same as me, but there'll be a level when someone's listening to that going, oh my God, that's me. That's me. I'm scared that I'll be abandoned, or I'm scared that they won't accept me. And you know what? They won't. Whoever they are, they won't until you accept you. You allow yourself to sit in your discomfort of any emotion that comes up and don't judge it. And allow yourself to express, to feel, to somatically using your body, moving it through, whether that's screaming into a pillow, whether that is swearing your head off for every word that you never said about the situation that you felt. And this is all body, right? We don't want to journey in the mind too much here, right? It's the emotion you want to feel and let it release, which will then create space for you to be like, oh my God, I can hold this for myself. I can move forward. I am safe to be me, fully expressed.
I absolutely love that exercise. And maybe that's something that if you're listening to this, you want to try, closing down the eyes, creating a bit of safety in the body, just using the breath to regulate your nervous system. Maybe ask yourself, success is. And like we said before, we know that intuition won't talk to you in long narratives. It'll come in the word, right?
So if you're in your head, notice that. If you're getting blah, 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 blah. No. Yeah. You're in your head. More breathing in the body, right?
Yeah. And just notice what comes up for you. And it normally surprises you, right? Mm-hmm. Because we think, oh, but I want that. And that's good. So why don't I allow myself to have it? And for me, my kind of core wound is ultimately unworthiness. So I will self-sabotage myself in numerous different ways. I've got a lot of different things that I have done in the past, because my fear is that like, even if I had everything, it still wouldn't be good enough. That terrifies me. Like, what if I do all of this? What if I step into my potential? What if I still don't feel good enough? And I've had to work a lot on really seeing that I am enough, even if I do nothing. So I've had to take periods out of work, for example, where I've deliberately not worked. I've been in the fortunate position where I built my business to a point where I was able to do that for myself. But I've taken that time out just to see that I'm of value, even when I don't contribute. Because my big thing is I'll give. And then that makes me feel worthy. But actually allowing myself to feel that level of worth by just being, by not doing anything, by just being me. That's been a really powerful piece.
And that's the work, Sarah. That is the work. So if you're in this space, and even if you're not in this space, doing nothing is the work. Like this BS story that we have been fed, that do more, hustle. I'm allergic to that. It makes me ill. I can't even bear it now. In corporate, that's all I ever did, 70-hour weeks. I don't know how I functioned. Like, I could not go back to that, because it doesn't make you valuable. It doesn't at all. And I think people have started to realise that. It's evolved a lot. But actually doing nothing, but putting conscious intent behind it, not just going like, okay, I need to do nothing. I'm just going to numb out with, or just going to like watch it, and nothing wrong with that. Because do you know, I think as long as you're putting conscious intent behind anything, thumbs up. Even if that's, I'm going to binge watch Selling
Kardashians
Sunset
is my go-to. Kardashians.
But tell us, right? Because then people can be like, yeah, but why you do? No. There's a reason you do that, right?
Yeah, like that is I don't want to have to use my brain, and I'll like it. Don't tell me why I like it, but I'll like it.
Yep.
And that's so I will take afternoons, a couple of hours where I'll go, I'm done. Like, I'm depleted. The duvet comes down. I like get snug on the sofa, and I do it with intent. And when you do it with intent, you don't feel guilty, or you feel less guilty.
That's it. We do it with intent. And I think that's it. Putting conscious intent behind it, because guess what? When you do that, you're back in the driving seat. You're that part of you isn't controlling you. You're driving the car. You're like, hold on, I'm running the show here. I'm choosing to do this. And when you do that, when you make that choice, you feel like, oh, I'm steering the ship here. I'm steering the ship. I'm doing it. I don't need to justify it. We've actually built it in a really good place where we really do that. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, when you're in business, there are times and seasons where you do more. But Sarah and I really have said this for a while, like, not doing the work is the work. That is the work. Being able to sit in stillness and allow everything just to digest, just to integrate, and just to be like nature. A walk in nature is the work. That is healing. Like that, we underestimate it, right? That's free. Totally. It's free, but it is so healing. Like often you'll see me hugging a tree. I'm like, give me some of that energy. Yeah. I'll be sitting in the ground like, a man must have thought I'd lost the plot. I was out walking the dog and I was doing a flow dance meditation and I had my big headphones on and I was with the dog and I was like lying on the ground and I'm like, oh, I felt like I was levitating, and I know people would have been walking past. I don't care. I'm like, this is, not only do I feel good, I show up for my family, replenished with energy, present. I show up for our clients, our community, for you better. When I serve me, I show up better for everyone as a byproduct. Go figure, right? Doing more isn't always good. Actually, doing less is the doing more, which sounds crazy.
We have had like the most productive seasons and periods in our business whenever we've stepped back. Like it sounds counterintuitive, but when you slow down, things speed up. And definitely what I hear you say, you know, when we're talking about this theme and topic of like, how do we feel safe to step into our future and be our full selves and like, you know, like release that light and that potential that's within us, is safety. Mm-hmm. But it's not a one and done. No. Safety continually needs to be replenished. Like it is a daily practice. Because when we don't replenish it, what happens is we go back into the familiar. Mm-hmm. We go back into old programs. We take our awareness off it because our awareness isn't on it. We go into those automatic behaviors. So if you're listening to this is about cultivating a daily practice, and it's doing it intuitively, closing down the eyes, regulating the breath. Okay, what do I need today? Rest. The Kardashians, whatever it is for you. And then it's not formulating a narrative behind it. It's just sitting with that a little bit longer. Okay. And what does that give me if I do? Time, energy, space, trust. Or maybe it's you get a different message. You need to do something. You need to share your voice. You need to put your message out there. You need to take a bold kind of courageous action. And again, it's like, okay, like what do you need to feel safe to do that? I need you to believe in yourself. I need to connect to your why. Whatever your message is, it'll come through for you. But this is a daily practice and it's about being compassionate to yourself. You have never done this before. The chances are maybe no one in your family has ever done this before. You haven't seen this modeled to you. You don't have others that you can learn from. get those others in your life.
Yeah.
Find a community where those people are. Show yourself that it's possible. You know, I used to think people with money were bad because that's what I grew up with, right?
Yeah.
They're bad, they're selfish, they ruin the world. And then actually when you surround yourself with people who have money, you realize they're not bad.
Yeah.
They're actually able to share their wealth and do more in the world and give more back, because money is energy. And actually in the right hands, it's where we transform, you know, lives and society. So drilling deeper into, I haven't done this before and this feels unknown and it doesn't feel safe. What do I need to feel safe? What evidence do I need to show myself?
Yeah, absolutely, Sarah. And I think it's so important that people know that it is possible. And so even though you've never done it before, having the awareness that it is possible. So let's wrap up with the 3 things, okay? So number 1.
Yeah, so feeling safe to move into your future. 1 is the acknowledgement and the acceptance that you haven't done this before. So there will be a period of moving between the void of 2 worlds, where you are now and where you really want to be, and you're in that transition timeline. So if you're in that space, it's not going to feel fully safe just yet. And rather than wrestling with that and putting the heavy weight of expectations that it should be different and trying to take on too much, just bring the acceptance. Oh, this is my transition timeline. It's not going to feel fully safe because I haven't been there before. So bring that acceptance first and then.
Brilliant. Yeah. And then the safety, the space to create the safety. So giving yourself the space, doing less rather than doing more and forcing, creating space so that your intuition can communicate with you. You can drop into the body and ask your body, asking your intuition, what do I need right now to feel safe? And looking at ways to give that to yourself. So the seeing it and giving it to yourself rather than thinking someone else needs to fill that void and give it to you. The key here is to give that to yourself, because you can do that, right? And third and final.
The third and final is build up evidence that it's possible from others who are already in that space. So surround yourself with expanders and elevators. And that can be in your immediate environment, but can also be choosing who you follow on social media, people who are authentically aligned with you, listening to podcasts of people who have chartered this path, who have done it before, and notice the patterns that come through. You know, I'll listen to things like Stephen Bartlett, you know, Diary of CEOs. Like there's a lot of different podcasts like out there, and the one pattern is there's no linear timeline. It requires resilience. It requires digging a little bit deep at times. It requires being bold and brave and going into the unknown, but surround yourself with successful people. Look at what they do, hear their stories, connect with it, and most importantly, know that it's possible. And it is possible. And you've got to stay true to the course, not only for you, because when you shine your light and when you step into your potential, you create such a profound ripple effect because you make it safe for others to do the same. So create that safety for yourself through those 3 steps. And follow that intuition, listen to your body and listen to how you feel.
Beautiful. And if you want to be part of our community where we are always shining that light and inviting you to step into your full light, then come and follow us over on Instagram, or if you're on LinkedIn, you can connect with us on there as well. I will drop all of the links in the show notes. Beautiful, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks for listening.